commonly seen in Lebanon, an excavator walking down the road with wood. Fire, wood. So today, with the Central Boiler Classic Edge 760, I am doing revision number 5. So I've done my own radiant flooring. I've done my own manifolds, as you see here. I have the outdoor boiler piping in down through these lines here, and it's going into this 120-gallon indirect tank. There's a coil in here, goes down, and it returns directly to the central boiler. So what I'm doing this time is I'm adding a 70 plate heat exchanger that you see right down here. What this is going to do is the boiler is going to loop down to this and immediately return back to the boiler outside. This way here, my burn times are going to last longer. My heat is not going to drop as rapidly in the water. It's going to allow the boiler to keep up better. And the plate is going to take on the heat and exchange it over to this indirect coil. This in turn will heat up my 120 gallons, which in turn will go down through the floor as it's called for. Hoping this is going to reduce my wood usage. I've been using roughly 1.5 cords every couple weeks, which is pretty crazy. I got 17 cords this year, and I've got about 3 left. So I'm hoping this plate exchanger is going to reduce that, lengthen my burn times, and help the system operate a lot better. I'm going to be getting my electric in the next couple days, and that's also going to help this system bleed out all the air. Right now, I'm running off of a natural flow. I don't have any pressure in here, and I'm having trouble bleeding out the air. I don't have any pressure to push it out the bleeder. So that'll be my next stage, is getting the fresh water, the domestic water pressure up to the 30 psi that normal heating systems have. And I'm hoping that's going to help push out the air problem I have right now. So without further ado, I'm going to get going. I'm going to actually continue cutting the piping. I forgot to start my camera, so here we go. By the way, guys, if you guys are using these crimps with the tool, I highly recommend this ratchet tool. I picked it up at Home Depot. This is called an Apollo. I had one of these before without the ratchet, and it definitely does not crimp as good as this. This definitely gives it a couple extra squeezes that tightens it up very well. After all of these connections, I've had a couple leaks, and this ratchet tool just added on the crimped pressure and the leaks went away. It has a blue light here that comes on when it's reached its crimp capacity, so you'll know when your crimping is done. Okay, so there we go. I now have my loop from the boiler outside coming in here. I've got a gauge that tells me the temperature coming from the boiler, so I know how much of a drop I have from the boiler to here. This is roughly 70 feet. I've got a shut off, so if I have to service or replace this plate exchanger, I can. I'm gonna put a shut off on the other side as well. I have a shut off on the return line on the other end, right over here. So I can isolate this plate exchanger completely. Now for the other side to feed the indirect hot water heater. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this spigot off of this T, and I'm going to reuse the spigot when it comes out of the bottom of the coil of the indirect. And I'm going to have basically a line like so. It's going to come out of the indirect hot water heater straight to a spigot, and then a shut off right after that, so I can isolate the indirect hot water heater. So if anyone is unaware, these crimps, if you need to remove these, pull this off and replace it with a longer pipe or something different, it's easily done. It takes a little bit of work, but if you notice here, there's a little tab that sticks out, and this band comes over the tab, clicks on it, and as you crimp, it squeezes it back in and locks the plastic to the brass. To remove that, what I do, I take a cutter, and I squeeze like so. So what I'm doing is I'm lifting this tab up, and then I'm going to try to work it off of that tab that's sticking out. There we go. Oh, just popped. So there's the tab. There's the band that went over it. So now I could just take this, pull, and unwind the band like so. There you go. Okay. Now keep in mind, if you're going to use this piece of pipe again, let's say it's longer and you want to reuse this, you need to cut this. Don't try to reuse the crimped end, because there's little ridges in here inside the plastic. Now that it's been crimped, you'll have a guaranteed leak there. So you work this off, you cut your pipe, and then reuse after the crimp point. It is never easy getting these off of the fittings, but if you bend it back and forth like so, it takes some good muscle work, but if you keep bending it back and forth like so, you should be able to work it out. It's being stubborn. There we go. Perfect. So if you notice, all this coil, PEX B, it's got this arch. It comes in a roll. It's like literally impossible unless you're mounting it to the wall or heating it up to a certain temperature to hold it in its place. You're always going to have that bend. And I found it useful to get away from the heat. So if it's a cold return and I want to store my heat and keep it running in the hot lines, I bring it out. Okay, so my cold is roughed. Now I got to do the heat side, which is this here. I've got to remove all of this because the way I had this set up before is the temperature of the tank. If the tank was over temp, I have it set at 185. If it turns to 185, the supply line closes, the bypass opens, so it was a loop back to the outdoor boiler. This was a mechanical way of controlling the tank temperature. But now we're going to have the plate exchanger that keeps that control. And what I'm going to put in here is I'm going to take a Taco zone valve, and this sensor in here is going to call for heat, which will turn on the Taco pump and circulate on the plate exchanger. That way there, the plate exchanger stays hot when it's not needed, returns the hot water to the outdoor boiler, and retains heat and saves wood. So this is all coming out. I'm going to rebuild that next. Cold supply is all set, so I am going to actually crimp this. Now, in addition to the plate exchanger saving on heat and water temperature, it's also separating a non-pressurized system from a pressurized system. What I mean by that is the outdoor wood boiler doesn't run on any pressure. It's gravity fed with a pump that goes through the loop and up back to the tank on the wood boiler. The other side of this plate exchanger is, think of it as two separate tanks next to each other. One plate with water in it, another plate with water in it. They never touch each other. One side is the natural gravity that's from the outdoor boiler. The other side is pressurized with the house system, and that'll be at the 30 psi. The rest of the system's going to be at, and then I'm eventually going to add on my propane boiler. Gives me instant hot water when I need it, above and beyond the outdoor boiler. So this will help me separate non-pressurized to pressurized and exchange the heat. Okay guys, so here's what I'm doing. I am going to add a T into this loop, thinking about it. I have my plate exchanger putting in the indirect boiler loop. I got a take-o valve that's going to circulate, but because this is a separate loop, I need a way to fill it and keep that water full as part of the loop. So I'm going to put a Y in there with a shutoff, and I'll eventually add the 30 PSI domestic to it. And that'll allow this loop to stay full, and I'll put a bleeder on it as well, because this is now going to be pressurized. So what I decided I'm going to do is I'm going the 1-inch line that's in the loop here. I got a little 1/4 inch shutoff that I'll put on for now, and then when I'm ready, this is such a short loop, I wouldn't need more than a 1/4 inch to fill, so I can reduce down on the domestic side and let it autofill. It's one way to do it. Okay, I stand corrected. That's 1/2 inch, not 1/4 inch. I mentioned 1/4 inch. Okay. Couple of 1-inch pieces. Crimps are there. Just like that. Come to think of it, I need to do a second one. I need to have a bleeder. This is pressurized now. So I got to be able to bleed that once it's pressurized. So this is the top of the coil here. So make sure this is up above. Put a T on that. How high do we want to go? Bring it up like this. That on there. Couple crimps. I'll be right back. All right, so I got my fill, my isn't she pretty? Liter, a gauge, loop temperature. I know what I forgot. My takeover pump. Ironically, I had one put together. I just realized I made a mistake. I am so used to pushing with the valves on a standard furnace. You take your zone pumps and you send it back to the boiler to heat up and to go back into the loop. Well, technically, my plate exchanger is the boiler. I'm trying to heat this zone. So the way I have it right now is it's taking the upper part of the tank here, bringing it in and returning it back on the lower part, but it's supposed to be the other way around. I should have, this says from boiler supply, so I should have my pump pointing that way, feeding up into here, pushing down, heating the water, and returning to the pump cold. It's the opposite right now. So here's what I'm going to do. This is why they have these shutoffs here. You can shut off before and after the pump. If your pump dies, disconnect it, swap it out, and you're good to go. I'm shutting the line off. I'm going to flop this pump around, so it's going to push that way. There's a rule about these pumps. You can put the electrical on the top and on the sides, but not on the bottom. But can you put the pump motor facing down? I don't remember. I'll find out soon enough, but leave it in the comments if you know. I'm sure I could look it up too. Okay, so what we have here is, behind here is the hot coming in from the outdoor wood boiler, and then the cold that returns goes through the filter, and I also have a bypass in case I need to work on that, and that returns back to outside. So my hot line here, I have it insulated, comes across like so. I could see what my temperature is. I'm at currently 165. No pressure because there's no, it's a gravity system with the boiler. I could shut it off here. This goes into the plate exchanger, so if I have to work on it, I could shut it there. It then comes up and returns back to the outdoor boiler system. The other side of the heat exchanger, I've got hot water here coming out of my tank. Okay, this is still heating up. I just finished doing everything, so we're a little over 110 or so. which is good. I've got, as I mentioned, I got about 50 psi on the tank right now and on the system. I'm going to balance that out. Once it comes up to temperature, I'll bring it to about 30 or so. And there is my bypass to fill the other loop. Now that the tank is full, within a week I'll have my water system here with the well and everything, so I can just eliminate that. And I set it up so I have a shut off and a shut off. I can cut it in the middle, and I can use these two for each loop, whatever I want to do with it. So, and this here is going to be the water fill. I just turned it down. That's what I'm using to bleed out some pressure out of the coil in the tank. Down below, that's the return back to the plate exchanger. I got a drain fill there. Here's where I can shut it off to service the plate exchanger. And here's my zone pump, which is pushing into the tank. So what happens is it feeds in hot. I'm sorry, this is backwards. This is the reverse of the plate exchanger. So the outdoor boiler heats the exchanger takes the hot water, puts it up into the tank, into the coil. Then it returns back into here. All right, well, there you have it. I'm going to work the air out of this for now until I can get some pressure on it from the well when it gets moved. So I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned. I'm going to have the next episode up shortly with the house. There's some completions almost done. We're finally making some good progress, so look forward to see you on the next one.